What would happen to you if you were sent to a black hole? Or you lived inside a volcano? Or if you were caught next to a nuclear explosion? Or what if the sun disappeared? In all of these pretty unlikely scenarios, you'd probably die. And scientists could predict a detailed account of your demise right down to the cellular level. So we've always asked why. Like, why is the sky blue? Or why does an apple fall to the ground? But now it seems like we're asking why not, or what if, more than ever before. So why is that? What makes us so curious about these hypotheticals? One of our universal characteristics is to be innately curious. In the last episode, we covered how when you're confronted with incomplete information, you automatically want to know more. Some psychologists suggest we have a natural tendency to fill in information gaps, and curiosity taps into a reward circuit in our brain. This new information can trigger the release of dopamine, which makes you feel fantastic. But there's still no definition for curiosity that can explain all aspects of it. Though to better understand it, psychologists have classified it into a few types. We can think of forms of curiosity on a grid. On one axis, curiosity ranges from specific, like when we want to know the answer to a trivia question, to diversive, a ceaseless exploration to seek novel information and ward off boredom. On the other axis, we have perceptual curiosity, which is aroused by novel stimuli, and epistemic curiosity, a yearning for new knowledge. In all of these forms of curiosity, we often have a practical goal to understand something better, whether it's a puzzle, the workings of the human brain, or the nature of the universe. These are obviously serious questions, but then we also ask these unrealistic what-ifs. So why do we like ridiculous questions, and what purpose do they serve?
All right, now let's see what we would have to do if we wanted to write the entire Encyclopedia Britannica on the head of a pin. We do that.
It turns out that genius scientists like Richard Feynman ask these questions too. It's not just little kids or YouTube creators. Feynman asked, why cannot we write the entire 24 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica on the head of a pin? And naturally, he analysed the problem. In case you were wondering, the head of a pin is 1/16 of an inch across. If you magnify it by 25,000, the area would be big enough to contain all the pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So to fit the encyclopedia, all you'd have to do is reduce the size of the writing 25,000 times. Then the diameter of a dot on an eye would be in the range of 100 millionth of a centimetre. The area of the dot would contain 1,000 atoms, still big enough to see under an electron microscope. Feynman is known for his contributions to quantum physics, and yet he dedicated some of his precious time to questions that had no obvious practical use. But actually, Feynman was up to something. He argued that if it's possible to write so much information just on the head of a pin, what stops us from inventing a tiny printer that could do that too? He said, what would our librarian at Caltech say as she runs all over from one building to another if I tell her that 10 years from now, all of the information that she is struggling to keep track of, 120,000 volumes stacked from the floor to the ceiling, drawers full of cards, storage rooms full of the older books, can just be kept on one library card? Feynman was showing a perceptual and diversive form of curiosity, but that led him to a more epistemic and specific curiosity, where he wanted to know how to solve a problem. Feynman was imagining a future where information could be stored in smaller or even weightless form. He realised a need, even if he wasn't quite right about the format. Thanks to nanotechnology and computer technology, entire libraries can now fit on tiny hard drives. This is the bright side of what-ifs. They help us better examine the present and organise our thinking around what we don't know. What-ifs are thought experiments that can push the frontiers of science. For example, when we ask what happens on the inside of a black hole and do the math, we find that time and space switch roles. And what-ifs can also lead to cool practical ideas. The inventor of the Polaroid camera, for example, was inspired by his impatient 3-year-old daughter asking, why do we have to wait for the picture? Asking such simple questions might seem easy, but although we're born with this skill, research shows for the average person it peaks around age 4 and declines as we grow up. Curiosity is kind of an art that you need to keep practicing. So keep on asking questions. Don't hesitate to find a rabbit hole and go down it. You never know what you might find at the other end. Like the first page of Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities engraved on the head of a pin with a beam of electrons. I'm sure while you've been watching this video, some of you have wondered, what if I never went outside? Luckily, my friends at Life Noggin have all of the answers for you. They ask what if all of the time, and the videos are a really fun way to explore these hypothetical questions. Please go check them out. There's links here to their videos and down in the description. Thanks. Thank you.